How many of you have already been online this morning? Anybody? Raise your hand high, raise your hand high. You are not very techie people. What's the matter with you people? Who was on last night before they went to bed? I was on last night. I have my iPhone. It's also my alarm. I use my, so it's like totally tempting to check the Spurs score late at night, see what they won or not, or see what the latest news is right before I go to bed. Whenever I go to the web pages that's for news stations, whether it's CNN or Fox or MSNBC, or I'm going to find the news of the day, all of those web pages are organized. They're organized pretty much like your regular newscast on 6 o'clock TV, and pretty much like the way the newspaper is organized. There's an entertainment section, right, where you can find all about J-Lo and what she was wearing on the red carpet. You can find a sports section, so you can find out what the stats were for Tony Parker. Did he hit his free throws or not? You can find a political section, so you can see what nasty things somebody said about somebody else most recently. And what's another one that's always in there? Oh, money. How's your money? Check your money. What happened to the stock market and what's going on? There are a couple other sections, but those are the four big ones. And it's funny because one of the Ten Commandments says, you shall not make for yourself any idols. Of course, in those days, the idols were usually something that was carved or some image they made a picture of, maybe of an animal or something from the sea or something from the earth or maybe some heavenly image. But today we don't really do that so much. Our idols are mostly just what we use every day and kind of what we bow down to every day. So I just wonder, sometimes that commandment's a hard one to not break sometimes, because we really, really care about sports, we care about entertainment, we really care about politics, we really care about our money. So that number 2 is kind of hard to not trip over sometimes. It's funny because when you first say the Ten Commandments, you think those are so easy. They look so easy, so kind of innocuous. Well, I haven't murdered anybody recently. I don't steal too much money most of the time. But some of those are tricky. There's another commandment, number 4, I think. This is the one that says, you shall keep holy the Sabbath day. Of course, Sabbath, for the Jewish folks who wrote the commandments, had to do with Saturday. But we Christians have borrowed it and said, no, we want to keep Sunday holy. That's our Sabbath day. And that's not always the easiest thing to do either, just to be honest. What is that phrase? There's a jingle that goes, you know this one. I can't sing very good, but you fill in the blank. You ready? Are you ready for some football? Football. Are you ready for some football? And that's the day we give the football. Sunday is the football day. You don't hear many people saying, are you ready for some communion? Are you ready for some prayer? Are you ready for some sermon? Pretty much we say, get me home so I can get home for kickoff. So that whole Sabbath day thing, the whole Sunday thing, that's harder than it looks. At first it sounds pretty easy, but the church schedules around the football season. We make sure our parish meeting in January is not on Super Bowl Sunday. We make sure our services do not interfere with anything on Sunday, and nor do we schedule any meetings on high school football for Friday. Or for practice in the afternoon. Youth group cannot meet anytime there's football practice in the afternoon. So you got to wonder sometimes, where are your idols and where are your holy days? So I'm not bashing football. I like football too. But it's kind of harder to keep those 10 Commandments than you might think. There's another one, I think it's number 8. In case you're keeping notes, I've gone from 2 to 4 to 8. 8 is the one that says, don't covet or want or desire anything that your neighbor has. Which is pretty hard to do too, actually. It sounds pretty innocuous, kind of like, oh, anybody could do that. But, you know, in our culture, the way our system of economics works, we put a huge emphasis on marketing to sell our stuff, right? I mean, marketing and capitalism go hand in hand. The whole point of marketing is to get you to want what your neighbor has. Pretty much. You know, if they've got something, I might want it. I obtained my latest cell phone because the person who owned it before me wanted the next one. You know, I've got the 3 and they got the 4. Anyway, that happens all the time. I just want to say, in a free market economy in the United States of America, to not covet what your neighbor wants or has is like almost impossible. So, number 8 is kind of hard to keep too. And I'm not going to go through all the 10 Commandments. I just want to say in general, you get the idea. 2, 4, and 8, not that easy to keep. And the other 7 aren't that easy either. In any case, what do we do when we find ourselves in such a mess, when we've already kind of messed up 2, 4, 8, and some of the other ones too? What do we do? What do we do when we find the 10 Commandments harder than we think to keep? Harder than we thought. And we've kind of transgressed or messed up or gone sideways. Well, I'll tell you what the direction I've gone in and what makes it easy for me. It has to do with my family. Okay? So, from my family background, and not everybody can say this, but from my family background, my parents and my siblings, whenever I got in trouble in my life, whenever my life got hard, whenever my life was in conflict, I could always go to my family. Okay? If I needed comfort emotionally, I was disappointed about something, I could call up on the phone or drop by the house and say, tell them what happened. Well, I didn't get that job I wanted, or I didn't get a good report card, or didn't get a good review, or something was sad in my life. I could always go home for comfort, mostly to mom maybe, sometimes my brother. The family is the place to go for comfort. If I ever needed an idea, if I was confused and lost, and I needed a good idea or some advice, I could call up my folks. I call up my dad to ask about taxes and cars and investments. And then I'd call up my brother about other stuff like, well, he's really an expert in guns and well, some particular physical things. Call my mom whenever I wanted to know about girls. So, Mom, what should I do? So, if I ever needed a good idea, if I was confused or didn't know, I called up the folks. And if I really got in trouble and I needed some tangible help, I don't just need some comfort, I don't just need some advice, I really need cash, or I need a place to stay. I always knew I could go home, actually. If I ever lost my job, I could call my brother and say, I lost my job. And he'd say, well, the bedroom's always open. Come on over if you need it. Which is kind of a nice safety net to have, actually. I know not everybody can say that. Not everyone's family works like that, to be honest. Some families are not that close. Some families, you don't have that kind of resource. But in my family, if I needed comfort, or if I needed advice, or if I really needed help, I knew I could always go home. So, with that as my background, when the Christian tradition says that when you get in trouble with the 10 Commandments, and when you feel like you're lost or confused, or you need comfort, or you need real help living your life. And the Apostle Paul will say, it's not about keeping the law, it's simply trusting in the goodness of God. It's not about doing things right, it's about trusting in the grace of God. It's not about being perfect, it's simply about trusting in the faithfulness of God. It's not about obeying all the rules, it's all about trusting in God's faithfulness. I could hear that message because I had experienced it with my family. So when the Apostle Paul tells me about it, and Jesus tells me about it, I know when I've messed up the Ten Commandments, I know I can always go home. When I need comfort from God, I can always go home to God. When I need advice from God, I can always go home to God. When I need real help from God, help me do this better, I know I can always go home. So, that's what I wanted to share with you today. The Ten Commandments are harder than they look. And when we mess them up and life gets confusing and we're kind of lost, just like I can go home to my folks, and some of you can do the same, but just like that, you can always go home to God. Because the gospel says that God's love is unconditional, that we live by grace, we trust in God's compassion, we depend on God's faithfulness. It's not about how good we are, or how perfect we are, or how strong we are. It's just all about how good God is. That's what I trust in. Whenever I mess up the Ten Commandments, I know I can always go home.